In the third session of Chapter 1, we shall cover the acquisition planning, also certain incentivization, what the government has done for the vendors for indigenous production. Now, the planning process, the one that is for defense in India, is a three-phase process, and the annual acquisition plan is the most critical, and it is basically carved out to meet the short-term requirement. At the apex level, we have the 10-year integrated capability development plan ICDP, which looks at the long-term perspective of defense capability building. This ICDP is done by the Headquarter Integrated Defense Staff IDS. It is in consultation with the service headquarters every 5 years. And this comprises of two 5-year plans to make a 10-year plan. There is also a technological perspective and capability roadmap, TPCR, which is prepared along with the capability development plan. Now this TPCR is onloaded onto the MOD website for all vendors to have access to it. The final approval of the ICDP is done by the apex body of the Defense Acquisition Council. And what is done is that the ICDP is translated into problem definition statements, which are basically used for furtherance and understanding of the particular scheme. To derive system specifications, timelines, testing and evaluating, and to productionize it, all comes into this, and it is used for the purposes of long-term planning. Now, the 10-year capability development plan, which is 5 years each, devolves into a 5-year defense capital acquisition plan, DCAP. Now, this looks at the medium perspective of 5 years. This is also prepared by the headquarter IDS. It is based on the SHQ's recommendations. Now, this is obviously culled out of the ICDP of the 5 years that are there, and it is based on the prioritized operational requirement as given by the SHQ. In this case, also, the final approval is done by the Defense Acquisition Council. Now, all this devolves into a 2-year annual acquisition plan, which is the short-term perspective and can be considered as the working parameter for defense planning and acquisition. What is this 2-year annual acquisition plan, AAP as it is known as? It is based on the DCAP, Defense Capital Acquisition Plan, and what the service headquarter does is prepare a 2-year roll-on draft AAP before every financial year. Now, what is this? The draft AAP is submitted by the service headquarter to the headquarter IDS by the 31st of December of every year. All comments are taken from the JS and acquisition manager, that is Joint Secretary and acquisition manager, by the additional director generals, by the technical managers, and the financial managers of MOD acquisition, that includes the SHQ also. Consolidated AAP, along with the prioritization of schemes, and that is very important, the schemes are prioritized, is prepared by the headquarter IDS, and this is based on the envelope of financial limits, which is linked to the financial budget. It is fixed, therefore, it is fixed in consultation with the MOD Finance. Headquarter IDS in this case takes approval from the next apex body, that is the Defense Procurement Board, latest by the 15th of the March. And the AAP basically forms the basis for initiation of each acquisition proposal for acceptance of necessity as per the hierarchy laid down. Now, what does the AAP comprises of? It basically comprises of 3 sections or 3 parts. Part 1, there would be certain acquisition proposal in a particular year which have yet not fruitified. So these acquisition proposals will carry over to the next year from the previous year, as also there would be certain acquisition acceptance of necessity, which is accorded during the year. Both of them make part 1. Part B, which are likely to be initiated for acceptance of necessity in the forthcoming year. Now, Part C has been added. Previously, there used to be only Part A and Part B. Part C is basically for giving prioritization to the long-term indigenous capability, which is under make and design and developed category, as we saw in the earlier sections of the lectures. Part D has been added to include the other capital procurement schemes, which has been basically added into the DAP 2020, and it lists these schemes separately to the Part A and the Part B and the Part C. Now, proposals which are not included in the AAP can be initiated, maybe unforeseen conditions, and these can be included in the AON for grant of AON also. The Defense Procurement Board can carry out amendments. These can be based on the security requirement, operational urgencies, budgetary provisions, based on the recommendations of the various agencies concerned, including the headquarter IDS, MOD Finance, and Department of Defense. Now, there are certain key additions, modifications of the DAP-20. Intent of the government is very clearly laid out in that. Independent external monitors, IEMs, have been added. Now, wherever there is a problem, you could address the problem to the IEM. So this is a panel nominated for each procurement case, and the details are outlined in the RFP, and IEMs are basically mandated for ensuring transparency and examining process integrity. It shall be based on a complaint by anybody. It is restricted to advising on suo motu issues at any stage of the acquisition process, and any stage. It can be raised by any vendor, any other agency. The aspects could be restricting competition or has bias towards some bidder oblique vendor, can be referred to them even by the MOD. However, it is in advisory capacity and not legally binding. The report by them is submitted to the Defense Secretary through the MOD acquisition, which gives his comments on the particular case. They are subject matter experts. These may be from the field of academia, legal, finance, or industry. May be approached at any stage for opinion oblique advice. Indigenous software. Now, to be able to enhance the capability of indigenous software and give them incentives, RFI will, that is the request for information, will clearly identify the availability of indigenous software for running applications. And they can be included in the Buy Indian IDDM and the Buy Indian categories, which are the apex procurement categories. They could also be included as the enhanced performance parameters. We will see enhanced performance parameters in chapter 2. While running of indigenous software is okay, the backend software, that is the operating system, may or may not continue to be OEM defined and maybe from a foreign country. Artificial intelligence. These have been included to examine the possibility for inclusion of artificial intelligence in platform systems and apprising the SHQ accordingly. And this has been mandated for the headquarter IDS. Now, two basic projects which are advanced in nature, aero engines and fabrication plants, FAB. Both of them India lacks in a very big way. Both of them have been nominated as projects of national importance. And wherever they are, they have to be mandatory procurement of applicable defense equipment has to be as buyer nominated equipment oblique as sub-assemblies. They need not be considered a single vendor case. That means anyone who offers to produce aero engines or parts regarding aero engines and fabrication plants need not be an ab initio single vendor case and therefore threatening the case to be closed. Military material is an issue which is a problem in defense production. India does lack certain high-end military materials, and therefore special allowances have been made to promote the use of high-end military materials and special alloys which are indigenous available, oblique to getting them from foreign countries. These service headquarters, on seeking the acceptance of necessity, can include the proposed methodology for sourcing these from where these materials will come from for the project and in the statement of case when they take the acceptance of necessity. For the case of ongoing projects, with projects which are other than buy global, wherever they are platformed and major equipment with major material components, these may be examined by the SHQ right at the ab initio stage, that is the RFI stage, request for information stage. In the buy and make category, we can ask for the transfer of technology from the foreign vendor for the manufacture of material in India can be sought. Development for future needs. DPSUs, PSUs, R&D establishment and the service headquarters have to carry out environmental scan and identify various materials that can be developed in India in a phased manner through own resource oblique industry. TOT inclusion, that's transfer of technology, for license manufactured by nominated production agencies, Indian material manufacturers, also against offsets can be explored. Make projects or through the Technological Development Fund can be incentivized. Development for future needs of Indian material manufacturers, IM may identify suitable material to meet future requirements. Share with DPSUs, PSUs, R&D establishment and SHQ to factor in the development plan. Take out projects also through the IDEX or under the provisions of the Technology Development Fund. Now to basically incentivize it, certain incentives are being given by the government. For materials which are available in India, but not being utilized for military application, it could be due to lack of knowledge of availability or convenience of using imported material. In these cases, a reward of up to 5% of the cost of the material, subject to a cap of 0.5% of the total order value, is allowed. Where the material is not used in military application due to cost of indigenous material being marginally higher compared to import cost. There the reward is even more, that is 10% of the cost of material subject to a cap of 0.75 of the total order value. The material may not be utilized as indigenous material as it is not validated. Here the incentive is a reward of 15% cost of material subject to a cap of 1% of the total contract value. This is all for the current session. That was session 3 of chapter 1. In the next session, we'll take on chapter 2, that is acquisition procedures, in which we will do a deep dive for the buy and the buy and make scheme, which are the major categories that are there in the defense procurement. It has been a pleasure to bring it to you. I would welcome comments and suggestions from you. Thank you so very much.